we finished the demolition, and before we moved on to filming the build, we wanted to show all the tools we used. It did take roughly 100 hours over 3 months of weekends to finish the demolition. So if you're doing a bus build, expect around 100, maybe 150 hours. It did take a lot of tools. The shortest job was actually the floor, and we'll tell you why. The floor in the living area was actually less than 90 minutes long, and then the longest was getting the rust up on the floor pan. And maybe that's just because I have a very long bus and it's like 225 square feet to grind away on. So you can see this is probably 2/3 of the tools we used, roughly. And I would say these were the most commonly used tools. Like pretty much every job we used something on this table. I think we could start with the impact drivers and hammer drill, because that is actually where we started. Literally is with those tools.
Yeah, so the most used tool is an impact driver. We use Harbor Freight's Hercules just because it's a nice, good quality for the price point, sort of a prosumer grade. But whatever you do, it's probably easiest if you have something that just uses one battery system. I also use Ryobi for specialty tools that these guys don't carry, and it works pretty good for me. So having the ability just to bring out or manage 2 or 3 batteries and swap them out between tools, keep them on a tool you're leaving it the longest, really is helpful.
A couple things with the tools. So if you don't have, we have more than one impact driver. I have my own set. I bought it for this build. He had a set. So, but if you don't have 2 of them to switch out the bits, because you will be using multiple size bits, maybe even drill bits, but there's this piece that came with, it holds it, the bit at the side of your drill. It even came with the hammer drill there, or sorry, this is a driver, not a drill. That is useful. You can also get one that just kind of like carry on a keychain and hook to yourself if you actually wear like jeans. And able to hook stuff. The other thing I wanted to make note, if you're buying tools for this, you are going to eventually need a hammer drill for actually drilling things in the bus. We used it a little bit for demolition. With the seats, I actually used it with some socket adapters and then a couple different screwdriver type bits, Phillips heads, or I think it was mostly Phillips heads that I needed it for. And instead of having to change out the bits, I just grabbed a different tool. In fact, we used 4 of them for the seats, and it made that much faster. But this set right here that I got was around just under $250. The hammer drill, the impact driver, and a battery with a charger for that battery. From Harbor Freight. It's really worth it, especially if you got their insider track. Even if you just do the insider track for the build, you can get a lot of these tools like Hercules from Harbor Freight.
And by insider track club, she means her dad's insider track club.
Oh, yeah, I'm borrowing a lot of his things.
The 2 impact drivers that we have here, this model, you probably can't see it on the side, but it is brushless. This is an older model that I've had for about 5 years. I've since upgraded to the same set that Sam has, but I didn't bring those out here. I left those at home. Brushless, as most of you probably know, is a little better in the sense that it won't deplete your battery as quickly as a brushed driver or device. Also, you have to, at some point, you'll end up having to change the brushes out here as they wear down. But I've had this one for 5 years and used it pretty steadily and haven't had any issues with it. It's a little bit of a consideration. The brushed are cheaper than the brushless. Obviously, the brushless has a few benefits, so your choice.
Bits. Highly recommend getting a set like this, and you can, they're, standard size with I think it's the hex bottom for these. We did break a couple, and we did break some of the extenders, like these cuffs and stuff. So make sure you're prepared for that and maybe ready to buy replacements or have several on hand.
And the bits were impact rated, and we still kind of went through a couple of them. So you probably want to put a little bit more unless you buy a bunch of cheap ones, which I've done in the past. But it's a little better to spend a little bit more for the impact rated, and they last a little longer, and still expect to go through a couple.
Similarly with your drilling bits, those are designed for metal, so that I think we use these mostly to drill through screw heads that we couldn't cut through easily. And these work wonderfully. They were so easy to work with, but they are more expensive since they're designed to cut through metal. You will need these, though, if you're going to be drilling through from the inside to the outside, etc.
Like stripped out screws.
Yep. Even during the build, you're going to need these, so it's worth getting it through the demolition process and having it on hand when you're building.
For demo purposes, we found just drilling out the screw head and taking the panel or whatever bracket was off was perfectly fine. An alternative is to use one of the smaller bits, drill a hole in the screw head, and then use a screw extractor. But since this was all demo and most of the brackets and panels that we were actually removing or coming out permanently, we just drilled them out.
And then, of course, you can get all sorts of socket adapters and accessories for your hammer drill and whatnot. So,
and this is actually one of the most handy accessories, and that's just a simple extension on it. It's amazing at how many places you're going to get to that this extension is very useful. And if you notice on mine, it's a little longer, I think about 6 inches. On Sammy's, she's got about a 3-inch or 2-inch or something like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a little better. So nice to have a couple on hand.
yes, because your size is going to, like, reach of this section is going to matter in some cases. Might have tight fit, even during the build. So those tools, all right here, are going to be useful through the entire process. Demolition, build, I'm certain we'll use them over and over. Yeah, so that's the impact driver hammer drill. The other one we used, that's similar tool, I would say, in some concept, is Stud's impact wrench, which isn't required, but is super useful if you can borrow one or have one on hand.
Yeah, there were a couple of spots where larger bolts, even medium-sized bolts, if you will, and pretty tight, and this was pretty handy to get them out. With that, we had a selection of impact-rated sockets and extensions and so forth. Obviously, didn't use all of them on this, but a couple things to note is every once in a while we needed the sockets. So I have metric and SAE here, and then Torx bits.
One thing with the sockets, if you're working under the bus, you're probably going to need a deep well socket like these. So they need to be longer if you're trying to get to that nut underneath.
Yeah, that was pretty helpful, and there was only one spot where that mattered, and that was actually pulling out the seats. We didn't use them to pull out the passenger seats. We use another method that we'll talk about in a minute. We did need, on a couple of occasions, these Torx bits, impact rated. For instance, removing the seat belt, it had a Torx head screw in it and or bolt in it, and we needed one of these to get it out.
Probably will need it to get it back in.
And we used the impact wrench too on it.
Yep. The other thing with the seats, instead of crawling underneath the bus and using...
So back up a second. The seats are bolted down on the sides. There's a part called a chair rail. You don't remove that during demolition. It's actually structural, but it has a little lip where that side of the seat actually bolts into two places. So there's not legs on that side of the seat. It just bolts into this chair rail, which is kind of elevated 12, 14 inches off the floor. Then the other side, of course, has legs on it, and each leg has a plate with 2 bolts in it. That bolt goes through the floor pan and is bolted underneath to secure it so that during an accident, the seats don't detach and cause more problems.
Yeah, and those nuts underneath the bus can be difficult to locate, figure out the person on the inside is on the same bolt as the nut you're finding underneath. And I honestly...
Don't do that.
Yeah, it's my opinion that's the hardest way to do it and the most frustrating way. What we did, And actually, you'll see in the comments, we'll list the video to that actual demolition. We used the impact wrench and the...
No, we actually didn't use that for the seats.
We did a couple places.
Did we? Okay.
Yes, because it was convenient. We had all 4 out.
And we just could grab it. Okay, it
Yeah,
wasn't
because we
necessary.
needed 4 different sockets. So
The impact driver actually was more than sufficient on it. Of course, we'd put the appropriate socket head on her with a socket adapter on here. A couple of things that you want to note when you're doing the demolition of the seats. If you put the impact driver with the socket on to the bolt head, then loosen that up a little bit. Obviously, if it's going to break loose somewhat, you're going to get in a situation where it's just going to spin. So what we did was we used, can you grab?
Yep, I think it was the
We actually
smaller
did this one. Nope.
Oh, you did that size.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we just used a little pry bar, put it underneath that little flange where the foot, so it's really the foot on the leg, pried it up slightly to put some tension on that bolt head and on the nut below. And sometimes you could actually just back it out. It was enough tension. That actually didn't happen too often. So what we would do in that case is just use the angle grinder, and then I just got a diamond blade on it. You could use other cutter blades and just cut the bolt head off and then pull the seat out. So don't fight with them, just cut them out. This is a lot quicker and easy to use, actually.
I would highly, highly recommend paying a little bit more money for that diamond blade because this is designed to cut through metal. Some of the cheaper blades, they don't cut as well through metal, and they take almost twice the amount of time to cut.
Well, they're designed for it, but you're right. They're just not as effective. Efficient. They're effective, but not efficient.
Angle grinder. The other thing we use this for is once we had the flooring up, some of the screws didn't come out. They didn't either. There's a lot of snow in this bus because it was used in the mountains down in Colorado. So there was a lot of just surface rust on the inside, and then the screws had seized up on
Inside of the floor pan.
Yeah. And some of the screws holding down the subflooring were pretty well seized up. So a few I was able to back out with an impact driver, so I went through and tried that out first, and then I ended up using this to cut off the heads and then grinding them down flush. Being able to punch them out didn't work either, so this was the most helpful thing for that piece. Again, same cutting wheel as what I used on what Dad used on the bolts for the seats. And then the other piece that this came useful for was...
So let's back up a little bit. So we would use this to cut off the head of the bolt, remove the seat, and that left the stem of the bolt sticking up 1/4 of an inch or whatever, right? And so you can't have that sticking up above the metal, above the floor, metal floor pan, if I can speak today. So what she's talking about is she would just cut that stem after the seat was removed, and after the wood floor on top of the metal floor pan. Once that was removed, once the wood was removed, then we cut the stems.
Yeah. The other thing this was useful for is to grind down the rust. We don't have a ton of rust on our floor pan, but there was some surface rust in a couple spots where it ate through. We'll have to patch. But a wire wheel. And I specifically chose a braided or twisted wire because it's more expensive, but it's a lot safer. These wear down. The cables here, these steel cables, they wear down instead of breaking off because these can get underneath your safety glasses and into your eyes more easily because it's small debris. So there was a lot less risk of the cables flying off into eyes and
absolutely
damaging.
So what I would say at this point too is what we're doing with this bus build and recording is really just telling Sam's story as she builds her home.
Yeah.
This isn't a how-to video, although we're trying to go in enough detail to make it kind of useful, because if it worked for us, it may work for you. However, I have to give credit where credit is due. Big shout out to Chuck Cassidy and what's the other one? Wolf Dog Buses.
Yep.
And I forget the lady's name.
I do too, but we'll put it in the notes.
But every time we enter into a new process, in the bus build, particularly the demolition, we would watch their videos, and I'm telling you, they're better They're a better start point than anything else we've seen.
Yeah.
Lots of good stories out there, lots of good information. But if you need to get down to the how-tos and how to do it the most effective and efficient way, I would say, those are two outstanding sources. And so the safety tip that Sam just pointed out, for instance, came from Chuck Cassidy.
It did. They both have years of experience building buses and building them safely and using common building techniques that aren't typically applied to this medium, a bus, but actually makes sense in the end. Again, that information will be in the comments. I'll link to their channels.
So far in the demolition process, we've kind of described tools that we used in each phase. The phases being something like this. First, remove the seats. Then we went back in and we removed the heater. Then we removed the wooden floor, which sits on top of the floor pan. We'll get into that and how we did it in a minute. And then we worked the floor pan, getting the rust down. And Sam will talk about how she did that, to the degree that she did it too. It's actually not bad. It takes time, but it's not bad, and so forth. So the heaters, we really didn't address that. So we got the seats out, now we got heaters out. We decided initially to delete the rear heater because she's going to use diesel heaters, marine diesel heaters for heat in the living area, as it were. We initially thought we would want to keep the heaters up front. What I mean by that is underneath the switch panel, the electrical panel, there's a heater, about 60,000 BTUs, so it's pretty hefty. Uses coolant just like the rear. They're all in one circuit, even with the Webasto.
To the engine's coolant.
Yeah, and so Webasto heater too for the engine, which we'll go into that a little bit later too, because that thing does a lot. However, when we got to it, we thought it'll be simpler just to remove those old ones because they're like 20 years old, the heater cores, the fans, etc. Even though they seem to work on when we were running the bus and testing things.
They did, yeah.
But they're big, right? And so we can put some smaller units because all we really need to do is keep her warm while she's driving, defrost. So we got from Jegs Automotive.
Yes.
They do performance parts, among other things, but they have heater cores there that are about 40,000 BTUs, which is a little less, but we're not heating huge spaces, right? It's just defrost the window.
Of the bus, the front third. So maybe if there's a couple passengers, I'm planning on the couch being able to handle seat belts, and that's going to be right behind the driver's seat. So not too far to heat up. No,
not at all. And so that'll give us a total of 80,000 BTUs in the front of the bus, just for where the driver and maybe a passenger are, and we feel that that's going to be enough. And I don't think you can run the diesel heaters while you're moving.
Some people do. I haven't really looked if that's
safe or
actually a
advisable.
safe thing to do. Yeah.
At any rate, we got enough heat for that use case of actually the bus traveling down the road.
Yeah, and the diesel heaters I'm referring to as my house heaters.
Yeah, so you'll see us install those down the road a little bit, but
to get them out.
Obviously, the impact driver was handy. One of the best tools, since we decided to delete them all together, is the Sawsaw, and this blade's pretty dinged up from the last thing we used at home. But we were able to cut those large, they're almost an inch diameter, heater hoses going to the heater cores. And in some cases, it was easier just to cut the copper fitting that they attach to on the core. And this went right through it. So this was extremely useful in getting the heaters out.
A couple of cases, we just pried the rubber off of the copper instead of cutting the copper. So, of course, a screwdriver. I've got actually this really, really cheap one because I used it in more than one place to pry things where a smaller pry bar wasn't useful, or to get the prying started in some smaller spaces. And then, of course, the reason I did a cheaper one, you might be able to see that's pretty well chewed up because I used a hammer. I have very little upper body strength compared to him, even though I do work out.
She's actually pretty strong.
I still got to use, tools. And I do want to give a shout out to Pittsburg. This hammer I absolutely love. It's from Harbor Freight. The brand is Pittsburg. It's just well made for I would say a prosumer or demo. Yeah. I really liked it. It sits well in my hand.
The balance is good. Here, let me see it. I'll talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
So a couple things that makes it handy. Standard claw in the back. Got it. Any hammer, right? But then on the top here, you can see these screws. You put a nail head in there and move it out. Not much of that going on in the bus. Everything's screwed down or riveted down. However, one thing that we did like, and I don't know if you can see it from here, but the face of the hammer actually is kind of contoured. It's not flat.
Like a grid?
Yeah. So very useful when you hit something. It lays into it and grips it. Now, it will mar it. So this hammer is great for demolition or maybe framing in a house. Which that's actually what it is, a framing hammer. But actually, we won't use this when we're doing the build because the face isn't flat and it'll mar wood.
One thing I will say, always have a hammer on hand. I recommend having a screwdriver and the pry bar, crowbar with you at all times because I was amazed how many times I was like, where is that? I need to pry this up. Sometimes it was just easier to pry something out.
Well, walk them through your bucket system because that's how you kept. So you can see here, Sammy used a bucket system just for the most common tools, and it actually worked out really good.
Yeah.
It's like because in all honesty, with the exception of the impact driver, tools in this bucket probably got used the most.
They did. So I bought the bucket cover or organizer. From Amazon. The bucket is Harbor Freight. During their parking lot sales, you can get the bucket for free if you're an insider track, I believe. So we have actually quite a few of these, but it's just a 5-gallon bucket, right? Like you can get them at any hardware store pretty much. One thing that's really, really nice is you can organize this, but it's open. And I don't like tool bags for some of these smaller tools because they get lost in there, I feel like. So I went with this system because common tools, like we were installing also on the land some electrical, and we actually ran it through pipes overground for a temporary system. And this thing came in super handy because we had all the tools we needed in it, including a fencing tool because we had to cut some barbed wire to get it out of the way or twist it up out of the way. I could keep all of the razor blades, spare ones here. I tend to chip the tip of the razor blades when I was using them. I could keep standard electrical tools like in here, and those come in handy places where you wouldn't think about, like wire cutters. The rear heater deletes when we were doing stuff at the dash, when we did the wire deleting towards the end. Sometimes, being able to clamp something with like needle nose pliers and whatnot is useful. You just really don't know where these types of tools can come in handy. Didn't use this tape measures yet, but I know it's going to come in handy during the build. The other thing is I can dump all of my safety gear. So all of this right here can just get dumped in the middle and I don't have to think about.
Talk about safety gear while you're on it.
Okay.
That was from the beginning.
Yes.
We tried to be diligent with the safety gear.
Of course, your glasses. I don't remember which brand these are, but honestly, I actually just bought a huge set of them because I tend to lose things like these. So I think I have one in each truck that I own. There's a whole box in our, where our tools actually get stored. So I have those. Off of Amazon, I think these are the Clean, Kleen brand. And then I call these ears. Actually, I call them eyes and ears. You'll probably hear me say that on videos, but of course, having some kind of hearing safety mechanism. Dad has one that actually fits underneath hats, and I like the overhead, so it fits over my ears like that. You can get the in-ear style. What's really, really nice about some places, if you look at safety gear for shooting, like handguns and whatnot, you can find really high quality stuff for not too expensive. This is actually designed for shooting, but it works fantastic for all of these because these are actually lower decibels than shooting. One of the things that's nice is some of these come with electric, what's the design on it? They can actually, when you hear a certain type of sound, it actually engages the...
Well, the frequency of a human voice is allowed to come through, but
any other
higher
sound.
pitched or higher decibel sounds are blocked.
Yes. So you can get in-ear style with that, or you can get them overhead style like this. I think Howard Light has one of them. I haven't used those. I'm perfectly happy with these, but if you want a fancier one, or if you happen to have them in your range bag, you can use those.
I've got a set of that brand at home that does noise cancellation. It's also got a Bluetooth speaker, so you can listen to music or whatever.
A couple things. Other safety gear. So winter gear. We did this through winter. So I love these smart wool gloves. I do need to stitch up the ends of them. Dad also has them, but they fit under other gloves. So they're liners, which was fantastic because I can put them and then double up and still be able to use my Demolition gloves. I choose to use Demolition gloves because I am hard on gloves, hard on things. I've used these primarily for this, and they're already pretty well used. I
just used basically neoprene, heavy-duty neoprene, and it's got a leather covering on a couple of the fingers. That seems to work pretty good for me. What's more important to me is dexterity.
That's where these came in handy.
So this will allow me to maintain a pretty high degree of warmth on my hands and still maintain some dexterity. With
this glove setup between his and between mine, we were able to work as low as, I think, in the tens, single digits even. Not for very long, but that was the day we deleted the front heaters. So we didn't last very long there because both our hands got wet from the coolant.
Yeah, so
we got cold. We were like, once they were out, we were done. That was a cold day. And then the other thing, if you're grinding, this is very, very, very helpful for keeping it out of your lungs. So I don't know if most people know. I do need to replace that, but if most people don't know, if you get things in your lungs, they don't come back out. They stay in there, particles and stuff. So that's why breathing respirators and stuff are very important for your lung health. Yeah. You can kind of get away with, depending on the particle thickness, I wouldn't recommend it while actually grinding, but if you're just a bit of dust, you can use something like a neck gaiter or a scarf and put it over. So if it's too fine though, this can may not be good enough. I like the 3M because this I can still breathe on and it doesn't fog up my glasses. So this is my favorite one. I believe that's all the safety gear.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you done with the bucket?
I think so.
Okay.
Highly recommended. I'm sure we'll use this through the build. And I think that's everything from the table.
Pretty much. As you can see, the last thing that we didn't address, a breaker bar. Didn't need this, but except in one spot, and that was getting a bolt off the door because we couldn't get the impact wrench on it. No space. So this breaker bar with an impact rated socket was pretty essential. So you might run into a spot where you need a breaker bar. That's all.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about removing the floor. So we have the seats out, we deleted heaters. Now we start removing the floor. Now the floor is screwed down to the metal floor pan. So it takes some effort to get it out. I've seen techniques where folks adjust a circular saw just to the right depth so it's not cutting into the floor pan. And basically cut it up into sections and then use pry bars to pry it up. And that seems to work pretty good. It reduces the number of screws at a given point that you're actually trying to pry against. What we did, we didn't do that though. We used a floor jack, which I think was essential. It took us literally 90 minutes to pull out well over 200 square feet of 3/4 inch, I guess it was, maybe 5/8, whatever. It was kind of delaminating and pretty nasty, so couldn't quite tell.
I think there was only 2 that we had to do manually because they just shredded too much.
They shredded too much, yeah. But what we did is we started it with a crowbar. We used this big one a little bit, but honestly, the smaller one was more useful in more areas. I still found that it was useful to have both. And then we'd simply put the floor jack underneath it once we had enough, and we'd pump the floor jack, and it would pop the screws out of the floor pan.
Oh, yeah.
Or pop them through the wood, but regardless, the wood came up. And by using those 2 techniques, a little bit with the crowbars, and then using the floor jack, it worked really, really well.
You do need, it is a 2-person job because somebody's going to have to start the prying manually with the pry bar or wrecking bar. And so Dad ran the wrecking bar for me, and then I did the jack. It was a little bit difficult maneuvering the jack because you had screws pretty much left over in a lot of spots. So, but it was a lot less back-breaking work than trying to do it all manually, honestly. I think it cut it in half.
And a point at this part of the story, so to speak, is you will have seen all this too. So just reference back to some of the previous videos when we were actually doing the tasks that I just described, and you'll see how we did this. So maybe in the future, well, I don't know. I was going to say in the future, let's start with this, but we don't know what we don't know.
Right?
So for us, since we're telling you what we did, it kind of makes more sense to do it after the fact, because then we know what worked and didn't work, and we can probably give you better information. So
part of my goal with this particular video, I mean, it's part of the story of building a tiny home on wheels, but also hopefully we can share some of our experiences, because we weren't really sure what we were going to need for the demolition, to be honest. We knew parts and pieces, but I was kind of amazed at what we ended up using ultimately and always having on hand versus not. And there were times where we're like, oh, we need to go get the Sawsaw. We didn't bring it out today. So maybe this can help give you a good idea of what you're going to need for that demolition and some of the things to just keep on hand. Before you're even jumping in, to be honest.
Yep. We're ready for pneumatics?
I think so. I think that's the most excited about.
Okay. So whole new thing for me personally. I haven't used pneumatic tools very much, just never needed them. Most everything that you've seen here so far, I've used in the past, no big deal. So it was a lot of fun, 1, setting the system up, and 2, using it because it became pretty critical in certain areas. So air tools, can you get away with not having them? I'm going to say no. You can, but rivets are the problem. So if you're doing a bus that it has panels on the ceiling and the sidewalls of the bus that are screwed in, you're fine. In fact, it's going to be a lot easier probably, like a Thomas bus. Bluebirds are riveted though. So we counted well over
1,000.
Over 1,000 rivets that we removed. And it goes a lot quicker than you think, though, so don't worry about the number. It sounds crazy. We did a test run. Can you pull out one of the punches?
Sure. We
did a test run. I removed 4 or 5 rivets on the roof, and they took roughly 45 seconds to a minute to remove a rivet. So that was like, when you do the math, you got a lot of hours going on there. But we, again, took a tip from Chuck Cassidy, and I think Wolf Dog Buses recommends the same thing, and that's to sharpen your chisels. So I just took on my grinder and sharpened the chisels to get a little tip on them, and they cut like butter through most of the rivets. So I went down to maybe 10 seconds for a rivet, 5 to 10 seconds for a rivet, versus closer to a minute. So it cut down a whole lot of time.
We thought it was going to take about 13 hours. We cut that down to, honestly, less than 6 for walls and ceiling.
Yeah, it was pretty fast.
And that's including getting down the wall panels that are screwed in, because the upper wall panels are screwed in. And then also trying to get out the bracket for the seatbelt.
No, there's only a couple of spots. What do you mean upper wall panels?
Upper wall panels are screwed in. That whole section, the strip.
Oh, the front and the back, right?
Nope, even the top sections are screwed in. I did it, so you don't remember doing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Because I did all, we counted, I did all but 4 rivets.
Yep. He was excited to try them out, to be honest.
No, I was just better at it. And you let me do it.
Well, I'm learning.
No, I'm just teasing her. She does really well. So the method for doing it is one, you take a punch, and I don't recommend a super narrow pointed punch. I actually broke a tip off in one of them. One that's enough to get inside and pop the stem through the rivet, but with a little thickness, a little bluntness on it too is perfectly fine. Then the sharpened chisel, and we used two guns, 2 air guns. If you can grab the little thing there.
Yep.
So when I got these, I got Harbor Freight, but I got their McGraw brand, which is the best, actually pretty close, if not professional quality. And then I got their mid-tier, not the cheapest, but mid-tier Chief brand. And the Chief works fine, except in cold weather. When it got to about, when it dropped
32?
down to, no,
20s.
when it dropped into the 20s, this thing just didn't work that well.
Like, went pop, 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 pop.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. This one, the McGraw, went great. Now, above 20 degrees or so, this Chief worked really well. So probably 90% of what I'm going to be doing with it in the future, it's going to be a perfectly fine tool. But just note that if you're in weather, you may need better air tools to make sure that they work in the cold.
We did have a compressor that could run 2 lines, but we found we couldn't run the air hammer and chisel at the same time. There just wasn't enough power to run both.
Yeah, this tank is only 27 gallons, 200 PSI. Of course, the air tools are only rated in 90 PSI, so we certainly set it to that.
Dialed it in. But what I was able to do is I could punch something with the Chief while he was still using the air hammer and chisel, and that didn't interfere with using them. The punching,
it's just the
honestly,
biggest air tank that compressor that we own. So
yeah.
it was more than adequate for one tool. We put it through the paces, no problem. 2 tools was
If you don't want to buy this because maybe you know you're going to be out on the road, part of the reason we have all these tool setups is because we own land. So Dad wants to have an automotive shop for some hobby things, also woodworking shop. So that's where a lot of these tools are coming from, like the floor jack, that's his. He knows he's going to use it on his vehicles down the road once we build his shop. But if you don't want to have it because you're going to be living out of your bus permanently and don't have a land to store all the stuff or use it on, you should be able to rent these things as well.
I don't think you can rent. Well, you might be able to.
Or if you got mechanic friends, they might have this set up because this is common for automotive, to be honest. So, check on that to see if one of your friends, family has a setup you could borrow.
Yeah, because we only were using it on 4 work days?
4 whole days, so like maybe 20 hours tops.
Tops, 20 hours of use or so.
And that's
so
like setup, tear down, and work.
You don't need, it was a good chunk of the demolition, but you don't need it for that many days.
And it could save you a good 20 hours just using this. So something to consider if you've got rivets on your bus, because there's going to be a lot of rivets if you do. Yeah. And then what else I think the last set was, you do need to keep them oiled. So this little oil can was very useful to keeping the air hammer and other tools.
Yeah, I'm sure it's pretty typical, but for these, you oil them at the beginning of use, and then after every hour of use, you just drop a few drops of oil in there to keep them going. It's
this
fine.
little can, it's cute. It was a lot easier than the
bottle. So we had a bottle with a small nozzle on it. Thought I could get away with it, but it was pretty messy. This little can, I don't think we paid more than $4 or $5 for it. And you can get one squirt equals several drops easily, if not more.
It's in the automotive section typically.
In Harbor Freight.
At Harbor Freight, at least.
Yeah, you can tell we're big Harbor Freight fans, but
yeah.
You just got to be careful to get the better quality brands. Like I said, every brand line that we've picked up here, the Pittsburg impact rated sockets for what we're doing, more than sufficient. I don't know if you'd want these as a professional mechanic, but they'll last me my lifetime and be fine. And I do know, I know there are some mechanics that actually use them, so they're pretty good. The Hercules line, very good, no complaints. Is it DeWalt? Probably not.
Or Milwaukee?
Is it Milwaukee? No.
Definitely not.
But just for your average do-it-yourselfer,
Hobbyist,
you can get a lifetime of use out of those kinds of tools. So for me, I just couldn't justify, and I could buy Milwaukee, I could buy DeWalt quite easily, to be honest with you, but I just couldn't justify the expenditure against the quality and price point of what I can get there at Harbor Freight.
Hercules is considered like maybe a step above Ryobi, if you're, or about that range.
It actually is designed to kind of compete with your DeWalt.
A DeWalt, okay.
Does it? I don't know. That you can test it, you can look it up, you can figure it out for yourself. But
it's also blue, which is my favorite color, so I was happy about that. I know.
I really don't care about colors. Okay, and that's about it for the pneumatics. Essential part, if you have a bus that's held together with rivets.
Yes. If not, oh my gosh, that's good job for not getting a bus with rivets. The last bit was wrenches and ratchets. Where did we use these the most? With the seat, driver's seat?
Well, it kind of depended. We used them to pull out the panels and the structure around the heater cores. That was important. We used them occasionally, various places, nuts and bolts. It wasn't all the time. So let me walk you through what I got here real quick. This is just what I would think of as a standard automotive set of hand tools, not complete by any stretch. This is actually just my secondary set. I'm in a situation where having these rolling pack-out systems works really well for me for my tools. So I started out using the Hart brand from
Walmart?
Walmart, yeah.
Yeah. Walmart.
And they're pretty good. It's certainly not going to compete with DeWalt or any of those, but they're fairly sturdy and they're pretty cheap. So again, the price point is good. I eventually started using the DeWalt brand just because my primary tool set is pretty involved, and obviously that means weight. And I wanted something that I could pack more in. So I have 2 of those stacks at home. They're rated a couple hundred pounds a piece. They're not loaded out or maxed out. But bottom line is I can use those very easily at the higher weight when I couldn't with these. So I use these for secondary purposes, right? What I have here is basically everything's just the standard Pittsburg Pro Harbor Freight hand tool. It's my secondary set, so it's not gonna, it's something I'm gonna drag around with me on the property. That way I don't have to use my main shop tools. So they're all a little lower end in that respect, but I found that the Pittsburg Pro is pretty adequate for a lot of things. They might not hold up, in constant use. So that's why in my shop tools, I tend to use Quinn, gear wrench, that kind of thing is more than adequate for what I'll need there. So just a standard set. Screwdrivers up here. This middle, this one right here has just various metric and SAE wrenches. Just something.
I know. Clamps are at the bottom?
No.
Oh,
I pulled
that's
the
the
clamps
other
out.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, one thing that I'm a big believer in, and probably don't need to do it, I don't like skips. There are some in here in this particular set, but in my other set, I've purposely gotten around that. What I did here was I just bought the standard sets, but
You inserted. You added these, didn't you?
from the previous, yeah. I still got some work to do on these to organize them, but for here they're fine. Basically, your standard NSAE, standard depth and deep well. So basically 4 sets, and then the 3 driver sizes, 1/2 inch, 3/8, and 1/4. So like I needed to build a secondary set like this, I needed to purchase something like 12 socket rail sets, right? Which I did. And I went with the cheaper ones, and it was very easy, and they're, again, more than adequate. Got a bunch of pliers, too. Channel locks, lineman's pliers, needle nose pliers, just all the ones that we might need to use. And then there's some miscellaneous stuff down here. The bottom line is just wrenches and sockets. A standard tool set. You don't need everything that I've gotten here. Just a standard set will probably do you good.
Now, if you do plan on working on the engine, like doing some of your own maintenance, which I eventually plan to learn how, you might want to figure out the mechanic set you're going to need for your bus. I personally bought a Quinn 400-piece set. Got it for $300 because it was on sale, and it's kind of like Harbor Freight's prosumer version for mechanic set. Very similar to this setup with a few extra features on it. Because, well, we also plan to have a tractor, and I'm definitely going to be maintaining that. So I decided it was worth having a full mechanic set for myself that I can lug around the property, have it on my bus, use it on other things. Maybe eventually I'll do oil changes on my own trucks. I don't know. We'll see.
Basically, what we're shooting for is both in the woodworking and the automotive to have a standard hobbyist, do-it-yourself setup. So nothing too special there. Just want to have some fun when I retire. Another thing is these tables. These are folding work tables by Works.
W-O-R-X.
W-O-R-X. It's the Pegasus table. So I just watch Amazon, and when they come on sale, I buy one or two or three. I got about 5 of them now. And they're pretty handy because you can set up, as you can see here, we just set this up to do the video, and quite easy to move around. They fold for storage. And down the road, I'll be using more of the features, but there's clamping capability, that kind of thing. They're very versatile. You can look it up and see if you like them. But the fact is, having a folding workspace, folding table that I can create larger workspaces on was pretty handy. And Sam, if you can show the sawhorses. So the other tool that worked out nicely is the sawhorses. So you can see here we've removed the doors. What I'm going to do is weld them together, weld some hinges on them, and weld that into the bus. It'll be extremely sturdy, but it still maintains the bus look, which is something Sammy wanted. So having these folding portable sawhorses has been pretty nice. I'm sure we'll use them time and again. I can also throw a piece of plywood on them and make a big workspace if I need to in a pinch. What else, Sam?
I think that's everything.